Tar is an insanely interesting movie. There are many reasons for this, but the first thing that got me invested was the film's commitment to realism. You see, I went into this movie knowing nothing, and the presentation of the movie is very much similar to a biopic. The only difference, Lydia Tarr doesn't actually exist. This was a surprising thing for me to learn after watching the film, because almost every aspect makes you completely believe this person is real, and her achievements make you wonder, how come I've never heard of her before? And that's when this movie clicked for me. From the very first moments, it makes you ask questions. Now, while these questions start off simple, they get much more complex as the film continues. This movie follows Lydia Tarr, a world-famous composer who has won many accolades and awards, but she enjoys being in control too much. Now, this isn't a flaw that is obvious or in your face. It is introduced subtly and in a way where the flaw can sneak up on you the same way it does for the character. It makes you relate to a character which usually you would see as a cheesy villain if played the wrong way. Something I really respected about this movie was the use of an overture. It's something that I love from older movies that you rarely see. It instantly grabs the attention of everyone in the room. At least in my cinema, everyone was patiently anticipating the start of the movie as a beautifully orchestrated piece of music played. However, I did have a small issue with the overture, being its length. It should have most likely cut out a minute or so and only included the essential credits. I think some people could have issues with the structure of this film because while it does use a 3-act structure, it doesn't seem that way when you watch it, because most of the first act is simply setting up the character rather than the plot, which could be something that might bore people who enjoy more plot-focused movies. Speaking of the main cast, we have Cate Blanchett as the title character Lydia Tarr. Now, if you've heard any coverage of this movie, I don't need to explain their acting ability. Everyone knows they're incredible in this movie. You are fully convinced that she is Tarr, which may sound simple at first, but when you are a well-known actor, it can be distracting, as you only see the actor rather than the character. An example of this problem for me is an actor like Tom Holland, where every movie they are a part of, they never try to differentiate the voices between roles, leading to you only seeing the actor as opposed to the character. Cate Blanchett does not have this problem. In every scene, you are fully convinced that she believes what she is saying. This doesn't mean that the supporting cast is lacking either. From small characters that show up in one scene to regularly occurring roles, both are expertly cast. Each character has the perfect amount of screen time, where it doesn't feel like they're clogging up the runtime, or in too little except one. I found the character Francesca was included too much. However, they didn't have enough of an effect on Lydia to justify the frequent appearances. Moving to another positive of many, the cinematography is wonderful. There were some scenes in this movie that almost brought a tear to my eye because they were so well executed. Most prominently, the lecture scene. It included the perfect amount of dramatic weight, while also being an incredible one take that constantly moves around the room and was expertly planned out. Another slight issue people will most likely find is the length. While there are segments that are incredibly well paced, there are others in which the pacing slows to a crawl, which does help you feel like you're part of the world, but they last too long. The majority of these slower paced moments are in the second act, and the second act is where most of my problems lie. The plot of the second act didn't have enough of a simple to grasp goal for me. It mainly focused on the practicing of the orchestra for a performance that I felt wasn't properly explained. Yes, we do hear how Lydia has always dreamt of doing the performance in this area, but it never really explained what the performance is for, so it makes the preparation uninteresting for me. Another thing that could be an issue for more mainstream audiences will be the dialogue. While it is realistic and explores interesting concepts, there are times in which it becomes hard to follow, Some scenes even reminded me of some bad scenes in Christopher Nolan movies, where two characters are talking in a restaurant about nothing. However, the dialogue scenes that do work really work. A great example of incredible dialogue can be seen as early as the very first conversation. It is the perfect introduction to the character of Lydia Tarr, because first of all, it is from the perspective of a person who truly admires her work, so we instantly understand the common opinion of her at the start of the movie. Beyond that, it gives us a great insight into how Lydia perceives herself too. They are very full of themselves and arrogant, believing her job is the most important job in the world. Some scenes which really didn't work for me were the more dreamlike scenes. It took me out of the movie because it was very difficult to decipher the meaning. Now, I understand the importance of having things that don't make sense on first viewing. The issue comes when you don't even know how the scene relates to the main plot. I had a similar issue with the movie Nope. While the scenes not related to the plot works thematically, they can really ruin the pacing. For me personally, if you're going to have a more thematically relevant scene that is not part of the main plot, it is more useful as an introduction or a closer, because when it is paced halfway through the movie, it ruins the pacing and takes you out of the experience. Moving back to the positives, I loved the ending. While the final scene was a little cryptic, the scenes before that were executed perfectly. I'm not going to spoil the ending in case you want to see it for yourself, but it was certainly a highlight for me, and a perfect payoff for the multiple hours of building. In conclusion, I would recommend this movie, but not to anyone. In order to enjoy this movie, you have to be in the right headspace. If you are not, it will be a dreadful 2.5 hours for you. In order to enjoy this movie, it's almost necessary to enjoy character studies in some way. If you enjoyed the plot of Joker, for example, this is basically a much better executed version of that film. If you want to enjoy this film, you have to be open to new ideas and be able to come up with your own conclusions. This film will not give you the answers. It only shows you the different sides of the story, and it's up to you to unravel it and come to your own conclusion. Finally, an absolute must is that you must enjoy slow burns. This is a film which takes its time setting up the characters and the world. If that's not your type of thing, you will most likely hate this film. For me though, this is easily Oscar worthy, just for the acting alone. Even beyond that, the plot is so interestingly told that it gripped me in a way few films did this year.